A couple weeks ago, FunLab sent us their latest Firefly Switch controller. It's a Bluetooth controller whose hallmark feature is a Tears of the Kingdom themed RGB light pattern hidden in a shell that takes a lot of visual cues from Nintendo's own Pro Controller. If you're looking for a controller with a neat light pattern on it that is definitely usable and cheaper than the Pro Controller, feel free to stop this video right now and check the affiliate link in the description. On those three fronts, the Firefly is more than adequate. However, if you're someone looking for a controller that you'll want to use as your main go-to Switch input, keep watching, because there's a lot to unpack here. As far as the actual feature set of the controller, disregarding the lights for right now, it's your standard third-party affair. Around back are two grip buttons, as well as a couple additional buttons for turbo, light modes, and vibration intensity. More on that later. Both grip buttons feel okay to use. As for the others, I would have appreciated either a dedicated Bluetooth pairing button or larger control buttons instead of the top two extra assignable buttons, which are difficult to hit by feel alone. On the front, we have a typical Switch layout with digital triggers and potentiometer-based thumbsticks, none of which feel quite as good as the Pro Controller. The face buttons have ever so slightly less travel and feel a smidge less definitive to press. Both shoulder buttons are slightly recessed, also have a very short travel, and feel more difficult to press toward the center than toward the ends. Meanwhile, the triggers look decent at first glance, but also have a deceptively short travel and can't be pressed further than halfway down. Honestly, the buttons feel like they either need a millimeter or two of additional travel or a more solid click, like the low-profile buttons on the Blitz controller I reviewed a few weeks ago. As it stands, these buttons are usable, but not enjoyable. Luckily, the thumbsticks are a bit more acceptable. They feel okay overall. My main complaint is that they feel a bit loose at the moment compared to other controllers I have. That could admittedly be something that I either get used to over time or changes as the sticks get broken in. Unfortunately, during initial testing, Emily also found the sticks to be oddly less sensitive overall for aiming in Splatoon, without changing the in-game sensitivity settings any. After calibrating both sticks, aiming seems improved, but it wasn't a great first impression. Some different stick caps are definitely needed as well. The current caps have a decent shape, but allow my thumbs to slide off the sticks more than I'd like while applying a normal amount of pressure. One way the controller input attempts to stand out a little bit is with a circular D-pad that can be hot swapped for a standard cross D-pad, which is also included in the box. I dig it. I wish more controller manufacturers would have more components that could easily be swapped without opening the shell and desoldering components. It increases the potential longevity of a device as buttons wear down, and can have plenty of knock-on benefits for accessibility in general. Unfortunately, that's where my excitement really ends. The circular D-pad doesn't feel great to use, and makes me wish I were just using a Series X controller instead. There's also a small gap between the edge of the circle and the body of the controller. This allows the D-pad to have a full range of motion, but also seems more than ready to collect dirt and dust over time. Swapping for the cross D-pad elevates it to a bit more of an average feel, though it's still quite stiff in each direction and doesn't feel as good as the Pro Controller in use. Oh, also, if you've noticed that all the footage so far has been with the cross D-pad inserted and not the circular D-pad, that's because after swapping them once, I can't seem to remove the D-pad to swap them back, even for this video's footage. I just can't seem to get my fingers under the D-pad enough to pry it out. Your mileage may vary, but if this ends up being a controller you pick up, realize that swapping between the two pads is harder than it should be. For the sake of not seeming too negative about this controller, I will say that I've used much worse controllers, even in this past year. If you had this on hand as a spare controller for a random person to use during a party or a co-op session, it's certainly passable. Although, I can't say it'd be the most comfortable controller to use for a long play session. The Firefly is almost 20% lighter than the Pro controller, letting it to feel less substantial while being held. Combined with some cheaper plastics, hand cramps feel inevitable. FunLab tries to counter this a bit with some texture applied around the grips, but during my testing, I didn't feel that it helped at all. The vibration motors don't quite help either. To be blunt, this controller does not have good rumble. During a recent Splatoon stream, Emily felt her hands start to go numb after about half an hour of use due to how aggressive the motors tend to be when used for rumble in that game. Switching to Smash Bros. Ultimate improved things quite a bit since rumble tends to be a bit less extreme in that game. But in her own words,
the rumble provides a sensation of listening to a speaker with no bass. Adjusting the rumble intensity with the dedicated button on the back is the same as turning the volume of the speaker up and down without adjusting the actual quality of the sound.
In the end, the dedicated button for adjusting vibration is mostly appreciated to turn rumble off completely without digging into system settings. Probably the one saving grace of this controller is the light pattern. It legitimately looks cool, and the ability to change the color of the light or even hide the pattern completely is really awesome as an aesthetic choice. Even the light for the controller number indicator is kinda cool here. It's bright and downward firing. Holding it above a table, I can see the reflection of the light without having to twist the controller around, and it's just a nifty feature. Is it as practical as the lights on the Pro controller? No, but I can appreciate what they were going for with these lights, and it could make for a very nifty gaming session in a darker room. Yet, even all that lighting is not quite ideal. When turned on, there's a significant amount of light bleed at the shell's seams and behind the buttons. Additionally, when powered off, the material used on the top half of the shell is a different shade than the material on the bottom half of the shell, which makes it look just a tiny bit awkward. When viewed straight on, everything looks pretty cool. From any other angle though, it feels a bit unpolished. And you know, it all kind of just puts me in an awkward position. As a reviewer, I hate to be overly negative about any product and want to at least be able to establish a core use case in which the product actually makes sense. Like, for example, the Retro Fighters GameCube controller I reviewed a while back. It's not a great controller, but it is a really accessible wireless controller that works with GameCube consoles. There's a clear use case for someone to pick it up and for me to keep it on hand. With regards to the Firefly though, I'm not entirely sure who it's for. As a controller selling for $20 cheaper than the Pro controller, maybe it's for someone shopping on a budget? But I also just reviewed a different controller that costs about the same price and felt much more premium than the Firefly. 8-Bit Do also exists and sells multiple controllers at different price points that are a much better value with more consistent quality. Emily brought up that maybe it could be a good controller for children, but I don't know. Sure, the lights could be entertaining, but if your kid isn't picky, you could probably grab a cheaper knockoff controller without a ton of issues. Quality be damned. And if they are picky, then again, there are controllers with much better input on the market for around the same price. As a controller, I'm just not convinced this is perfect for any one type of person. However, I guess those other controllers don't have a cool Zelda-themed light pattern on them, do they? I mean, it's fun. FunLab created a fun-looking design, and their site has a bunch of other themed lights slapped onto the exact same controller. During actual usage though, You know, I'm not actually looking down at my hands very much, so it doesn't really matter if there are any lights on the controller in that regard. Even during streams, the lights are facing me. I'd have to have a dedicated camera on the controller or go out of my way to show the controller to use it as a prop. Heck, if you're into RGB lighting, you'd probably get more visual effect out of one of these PDP afterglow controllers, since the entire body lights up. Now, is this a great controller? Not really. It has its own set of issues like any PDP product, but it's definitely more usable in general. So maybe if you just want something as a set piece or a nifty gimmick controller to show off to friends, maybe that's the niche the Firefly serves. I don't know. I guess where this leaves us is to say the Firefly controller by FunLab has a few interesting ideas. Unfortunately, those ideas can't stick the landing due to some functional issues with the design, like buttons having way too short a travel, loose sticks, a not great feeling D-pad, and some very lacking rumble. If you can look past those issues, then, as I mentioned at the top of the video, you probably could have skipped this review altogether, because the main appeal of the controller, and likely the one reason to consider it over something else, is that the lights look neat. Those are my thoughts though. I'd love to know yours. What are your thoughts on the Firefly? Is there something you personally really look for in a controller? Are you someone who has already bought a Firefly and has some opinions of your own? Let me know down in the comments. As always, if you found this video interesting or informative, go ahead and give it a like. Then get subscribed for more controller reviews in the future. I promise they're not all this negative. In fact, I'll have a link on the screen somewhere to a controller by a company named Big One I actually really liked and is my current primary Switch controller. I'll also have affiliate links to the Firefly and other controllers mentioned in this video provided down in the video description in case you want to check them out. If there's a controller you'd like me to cover in the future, feel free to let me know down in the comments or via the various socials shown on screen. Again, somewhere, I have no clue where the direction is for this. This video was made possible by a review sample provided by FunLab. Obviously, they did not have any sort of editorial input into the making of this video. They're seeing it for the first time, along with y'all. That's gonna be all for this video. Until next time, catch you later.